Today's guest is Jill Sherer Murray, and I love Jill. We had such a great conversation. We actually had a few internet problems, and fortunately it was at the beginning, so we had to shift everything around. So I'm recording in my office instead of my studio, but it worked out and everything was perfect once we shifted, and she was totally good with that. She was just a very, very wonderful human being. I can just tell. And she also has a little bit of a background in comedy. So I knew I was going to like her. I knew we would laugh a lot, but she has a TEDx talk and a very, I think she said over like a 4 or 5 year period. It's a TEDx event is one of the local TEDx, and she did it in Wilmington, Delaware. But she said there were 25 people that did a talk when she did it back in, I think she said it was 2016. But there were like 25 people then. So they do them every year, or they used to before the pandemic. And like hers is like one of the top two that in terms of views. So it's a really good TED Talk. And I listened to it as I was preparing for the interview. And it's so good. So good. It's only 11 minutes. You have to watch it. I'll put the link in the show notes, but it's called The Unstoppable Power of Letting Go. And it's about a 12-year relationship that she finally ended at 41 years old, which is a very difficult time to end a relationship. You know, you've invested a lot of time in it, but she's really so much fun to talk to. And I think you'll love the interview. But just a little background, she's an award-winning author, journalist, marketing, and communications expert, and of course, a TEDx speaker, and founder of Let Go For It, a lifestyle brand aimed at improving people's situation through the simple mantra of letting go. So her TED Talk, The Unstoppable Power of Letting Go, has millions of views on YouTube and breaks down her own journey of letting go to successfully move forward. She has a best-selling book she wrote in 2020 called Big Wild Love. And so it's just a great conversation. She talks about her move from Chicago, where she had the relationship, to Pennsylvania, where she now has a life, and she's remarried. She met her husband on social media or online, I guess, online dating. So yeah, not like I met her on Instagram, but anyways, she also, and we didn't talk about this on the interview, but this was a little fun factoid. She did a weight loss thing in Shape magazine. She was one of the people, like, they documented her weight loss journey. And I used to love Shape magazine. I used to subscribe to it. And I the first thing I would do would be turn to those weight loss stories because I loved them so much. So I probably read her weight loss story back sometime when it was ever published. So anyways, enough about learning about who Jill is. How about we meet her? Okay, so let's get to the interview now. Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. And I have with me today, and I might be a little disembobulated, if that's a word, because we had to switch. I had to switch. So I do this on video. And so people will probably, like, she's telecasting from a different place, but we were having network problems, and Jill, my guest, is too good to be like interrupted by bad internet. So we shifted, and here we are. We make it happen, right? So I have with me Jill Sherer Murray, and Jill is somebody I basically found her on Instagram, and I loved her, like what her background is. She has a TED Talk, something that I dream to do one day. And we have very interesting backgrounds because we both were in relationships, and I think a lot of people are, she'll touch on this, but that weren't going anywhere or weren't going the direction we wanted them to. And we did the scary thing and ended them. Her ending is a little different than my ending. And she's also written a book called Big Wild Love, which we'll talk about as well. So welcome to the program, Jill. I'm so excited you're here.
It's so great to be here, Lori. I'm so excited to have this chat with you, to dive in.
Yes. Yeah. We were talking before we started recording, and we started, it was such a great conversation. I was like, I like to have organic conversations. I think that's part of the fun. It's like listening to somebody at a coffee shop who's having a conversation. And I was like, oh no, we need to press record and start, just have this conversation of discovery, because there's still a lot of things. I listened to your TED Talk and loved it. It was so powerful. LOL moment was the Ted Bundy comment. And I won't even get into more detail. I'll just make people want to watch it. But that was really funny.
Yeah, that was a big moment.
Yeah. Don't you love those supportive relatives?
And she was in the audience. My mother was in the audience that day. And she was like, and I remember glancing over at her when I delivered that line. And she just kind of looked at, and she looked at me and she was like, well, you know.
They're just trying to protect us. And, she was right. She could have said, I told you so.
Right. It was, yeah.
So anyways, so Jill's story, Jill's 58. She's, no problem saying her age. But this all happened in her early 40s when she really had a big pivotal moment in her life that changed everything. I love these, when we finally realize we're in these moments and we have to take action, it changes everything about our future. Like we hold on so long for something that is, like we were talking about before the internet crapped out, is like, what's good enough. It's good enough. And we will like talk ourselves into these things. And like deep down in our gut, we know like we're meant for more or worth more or whatever. So like tell me, just go back to where you were, what you were thinking, how you got to kind of that breaking point.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, this is an area of exploration that kind of came to me as I was researching my book. And I was really thinking about like, the whole subject of letting go and what was my process? What was my journey? What was that? Like, what was, I was in the relationship for 12 years. Like, what was different about that moment than all the other moments before it where I was like, but I want to get married and he doesn't. Okay. And then the negotiation begins, right? Like we negotiate down with ourselves. We're like, okay, we don't, I would say I have 2 degrees. I have no idea where the pieces of paper are. Like, who cares? It's just a piece of paper. It doesn't mean anything, but it does. It does if it matters to you. It's not about whether marriage is the right thing or the best thing, or we all have to do it. It's just about what we want. And, that after 12 years, I had what I call my epiphany moment. I write a lot about epiphany because I think we don't talk about it enough, but it's like that moment that we just can't unsee anymore, like, and I can say in my relationship, I had a lot of epiphanies, those moments that said to me, this man does not want what you want. He's never going there. And then, I would either stuff it away because I didn't like what it was telling me to do, or I would negotiate with myself. It doesn't matter. He's really good and I can't expect better. And then I would like look outside of myself at all of my friends who were single and couldn't find a decent guy at that time. And they all ultimately did go on to have the things that I wanted that this man that I was with did not want. But by then I was so deeply entrenched. And
you had the feeling that I had too. I was 47 when I left my marriage, but you had the feeling of that I'm going to be alone. That like we always think the worst case scenario, I'm going to be alone, or even like, is that even the worst case scenario to be alone?
Right. Well, and honestly, Lori, like that is the thing, and I can tell you that I don't know why we think being alone is, I think it conjures up all those old time images of like the spinster, who's like alone in a dark room with 8,000 cats, like we think
and nobody visiting
visiting. It's just not that way. And it's so interesting because, half of the people now in our world are not married by choice. They, there's so many ways to have a happy life. And I had to come to realize that. So there was kind of a conversion of a lot of different things. There was a huge event that happened that I talk about in my TED Talk that really woke me up and forced me to finally look at what I knew to be true. Because, we can only live in the untruth for so long. And so it woke me up to what I knew was the truth of the situation, which then pointed me to the choice.
Yeah, it's also too, like I felt when you were explaining it, like you gained, like you put on your courage pants or something. You just like you morphed into this kind of, superpower person because you were like, it was like you were weak. Of course, because you were really disempowered in that position.
Absolutely.
And then you took control and made that decision. And then that was part of the whole transition and like coming into your own and letting go, I think, because you were like, oh my gosh, you felt
Most
stronger just
definitely.
from like that decision, that internal decision.
Because we back ourselves into a corner almost, right? Where it's like, okay, now what are we going to do? What's the choice? Who do we choose? Do we choose them or do we choose us? And do we take that chance on ourselves? And then, from that moment, it's really doing the inner work of, why did I make that choice? And, where did that come from? And why did I stay with, and not with a judging, berating voice, but more with a voice of curiosity and self-discovery, so that we can course correct. We can figure out, why are we making certain choices in life that aren't getting us where we want to go? Why are we holding on so tightly to certain things that are no longer serving us? And then how do we move forward and take the lessons we need to take to do better, to get closer to the life that we really want? While I was doing all of this, I was asking all of those questions at the same time. Who do I choose? Do I choose me or do I choose him? Do I hold on and hope that somebody else changes to meet my needs? Or do I let go and take control, knowing that I can choose whatever I want for myself? And I always say that, barring time, space, biology, the limitations of, systemic oppression and all those things. But by the same token, we have so much inside of us that we can turn to lift ourselves up and out of wherever we might be stuck. And
yeah, I'd love to, not to interrupt, but I'd love to know for you, because for me, and I didn't know any of this until like I was like late in life, late 50s, when I started learning about the universal laws and how we attract things based on our thoughts, and how like we can live very out of alignment. And I lived most of my life out of alignment, doing things that I thought I should do or that other people wanted me to do. And so I'm curious that when you were in this place, like you were really living inauthentically. And did you ever think, while you were looking back, like even though you feel like he was making these decisions, or that he was doing these things to you, or like not showing up, well, do you think that now looking back, that was the universe saying, hey, Jill, hey, Jill, hey, Jill,
I think that we bring everything into our lives because we need to learn something from it.
Yeah.
And I love the whole idea, Lori, of alignment. And I talk about this a lot because, if we're not subconsciously and consciously aligned, like I chose Hector consciously because subconsciously I believed I didn't deserve the things all the way through that I wanted. And this is not to negate him at all, but I chose him because subconsciously I perceived him as safe. He was never going to give me the things that I wanted, so I never had that to lose. And I'd had some experiences previously with people that I was engaged to, whatever, and they crushed me. And so I thought, subconsciously, I'm not going to ever be in that situation again. So I'm going to choose someone from the outset who's never going to give me all that I want, so I don't have it to lose. But I had no idea consciously that I was doing that. So I would be like, why is he not giving me this? I don't understand. And I'm looking to this outside person or situation or story to give me answers, when really all the answers were inside of me. All I had to do was go, I chose him for all the reasons that he's doing exactly, that he is who he is. I chose a good man who was kind and loving. That's what I wanted. That's what the subconscious hurt me wanted. And I wanted somebody who would never give me everything subconsciously, because then I would never get hurt the same way again, subconsciously. We are out of alignment. And I do believe that things happen to us, that we draw things in, that ultimately the hard things are destined to shake us back into alignment. It's like shocking your heart back into rhythm. But we can't do that unless we engage in some sort of process of self-discovery to understand. Because I always say, like, your subconscious, that's the monkey driving the bus. It's not the conscious. Like, so we get on the bus and we go to sleep in the back while the monkey drives and takes us wherever we want to go. And then we wake up and we're like, how the heck did I get here?
That is so good. What a great analogy. So
Right.
good. Yeah.
And so that's, I know so many of us, we talk about limiting beliefs and all that stuff, but really, that's the thing, is like the default mode network, the way that we've wired our brains and grooved our brains based on our past experiences and our emotions and our heartbreaks they're the things that are guiding us. And so what I always say is, like, our subconscious and our conscious selves need to get on the bus and sit next to each other. And we need to start having that conversation so that we understand, like, so let me get this straight, subconscious. So you're telling me I picked this thing, person, opportunity, event, mindset, friendship, family, job, whatever it is, because of XYZ, but I'm here conscious. I'm choosing it because I want it to be, ABC. And that's when you start to kind of come together into one brain, where, maybe you have certain things you need to overcome. Like, I know for me, I'm definitely not alone. I was raised with I love my mother, had her own body image issues. She dandily passed them along. And so, there we go. There's another reason why I don't deserve all the things that I consciously want, but my subconscious is like, no, nope, nope, nope. So
that's another parallel too. And I think a lot of women can relate to this. I think a lot of women have it, because where we come from in terms of, women, being very body conscious. But yeah, my mom was anorexic, which I didn't even realize until I was an adult. But there was all these signs of like eating kind of weird stuff. Like she would put like she would make me 2 sandwiches to eat for lunch. And she would have like hardly anything on her plate, and she had a beautiful thin, we had a pool in our backyard, and she would strut around her in her bathing suit. And I really believe subconsciously, this clearly wasn't a conscious thing, because she loved me. She loved my sister.
Of course.
She wanted us to be overweight, and because she wanted to look good. I think having people around her who didn't look as good as her gave her a lot of satisfaction.
And she probably didn't even realize it. She probably
I know she didn't realize it. I know
idea.
It was like in here, and back then, in the 60s, people didn't even really know what anorexia was.
Right.
But she got it when she was 19 because of something that happened in her family. It was a control thing, right? That's how those eating disorders happen. Yeah. So yeah, and then you kind of like, then I had my own like weird, I lost 30 pounds when I was a freshman in high school. And then I was obsessed, with never gaining weight again, to the unhealthy degree, yeah. Which now my kids like are screwed up because of it. It's like, thanks, mom. But yeah. So it is,
totally.
Nobody means to do anything on purpose. They all love us, and yeah, we have to.
But again, it's the lack of alignment, right? Is that your mom? I mean, I don't want to analyze her, but I mean, I had a similar mom, and I really have to give it to my mom. I give her so much credit, because I talk about this in my book, and I struggle with it because I didn't, my mom is just living her life. Like, she's doing the best she can, and she's a great mom, and I love and adore her.
Clearly, if she's at your TED Talk, she's super supportive, and have a good relationship.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, I didn't want her to read my book. And she finally, it was coming out, and she's like, look, Maddie and I want to read the book. So I gave it to her, and I held my breath, because I do talk about how she was a critical mother, and that formed a lot of the way that I viewed myself growing up, as formed all of us, formed a belief system about myself in the world and what I deserved and what was possible. So I write about it, and I waited for her, and she finally called me, and Lori, I was braced. I was like, okay, I don't drink. Well, I eat cake, obviously. So like, honey, let's get a pound cake in the house just in case I need it. But she called me, and she said, I owe you an apology.
Wow.
It was such a powerful conversation. And we talked about, she said, my mother was like that with me. And I know that, I never meant to harm you. And I was like, of course I know that, she's like, I just didn't want you to struggle. I didn't want you to, when we had the conversation, it was like we were woman to woman,
Authentic with each
mom
other.
to
Yeah.
daughter. And
Yeah.
it was really, honestly, Lori, it was one of the best experiences of the whole experience of doing the talk and writing the book and having it out in the world was, this conversation. And what was so profound about it for me was that I didn't need it anymore. I didn't need the apology. I didn't need the acknowledgement. I didn't need the validation. I didn't need any of it anymore because I had done the work of cultivating my own big wild love, which is a very intentional form of self-love, which allows you to take the risks that are involved in letting go. So it's the connection between how we love and see ourselves and what we believe is possible for us and that we deserve inside the context of that moment where we're faced with that choice, whether to hold on to whatever it is or to let go. And I didn't need it anymore because I now knew how to do that all for myself. And so, yeah.
Yeah. And that's such a big part of manifestation of, letting go and letting go of the clingy on to what you want. And so it's just, that's a universal law of if you cling on too much, if you let it go. And then like, didn't Hector come back and say, well, I'll marry you. And you were like, thank God, didn't go, and do that. But yeah, it's like when you let something go and in so many ways, and you give 5 great tips at the end of your TED Talk. So I highly recommend for anybody to go. It's not like a big commitment of time. It's like 11 minutes. So
right.
super
Right.
good. So at what point, so you did the TED Talk. I don't know how long ago that was. I didn't pay attention to the date.
End of 2016.
Okay. And that now you have the book, and the book came out in 2020. So
Yes.
tell me how that kind of morphed. And then the big wild love. Oh, and I do want to say, so there is a love story after Hector.
Yes.
And she's married to Dan.
Yes.
And when I first heard the book title, I thought, oh, that must be about Dan. And I love
Yes.
so much that it really isn't. It's about, what
Everyone
you found in
thinks that.
between. Yeah.
Yes, everyone thinks that big wild love is about finding love with another person. And indirectly it is. It is. It's about finding happy, healthy love with someone when you are in the space to choose it for yourself.
Yeah, it's finding that love on the bus. You're sitting next to her, right?
You're aligned. You're aligned. Your
Yeah.
subconscious and conscious are like la 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 walking down the road together, making choices together, and not settling for what you used to settle, and having an awareness of, because when I went through all the work, I decided, listen, I may never marry, and I'm okay with that. There's a lot of ways to have a happy life. And I was truly in that space. Like I don't say that in a Pollyanna way. And that's when I found the right person for me, because I was no longer coming from a place of desperation or fear or I've got to do this, urgency. It was like, that's cool. If I find it, hey, great. And if I don't, I'm still going to be happy. I'm still going to figure out how to find the things that I ultimately want for my life. But I'm going to choose them based on whether they're right for me and not my voice. I'm going to listen to my voice, not like Janine Roth says, the crazy Annies in the attic. I don't listen to them anymore. I don't listen to like convention or society or like, people tell me, what I'm supposed to be wearing or what I'm supposed to be doing or who I'm supposed to be or what my measures of success are in life. That's up to me. And let me tell you something, Lori, when you give a TED Talk and you're out there on YouTube, you have to know when you put yourself out, like Brene Brown says, if you're not in the arena, shut up. Mm-hmm. People have opinions, but you can't let the really great things they say and the really horrible things they say define you. Neither one does. And so when you go into the world knowing that only you get to define yourself and what you have, there's so much freedom to that. And I'm not saying it's a straight line. I'm not saying there are like hard moments where there's not challenges or, you doubt yourself or you fall back, but just even having the awareness of what big wild love looks like and how to find your way back to it in those moments. Because I can tell you that when I started to date again, I met guys that were like a Hector. They, weren't reliable. They, like, you could tell they were just a certain type that weren't going to give me what I wanted. And I could feel myself slipping back. At one point, I was like, no, stop it. Stop it. Because when you feel so familiar towards something, or like you don't know it, but like you just feels like home. Home is where the old home is always going to pull you. Old wounds are always going to come back and try to pull us.
It's safe. Yeah.
Back to what we know.
Even though it's, yeah.
Right. And the familiarity, but we have to resist. And when you do have big wild love, you have that overall awareness that is always tugging at you and saying, no, you know better than this. Keep moving. And I do that throughout my whole life. So and I'm
going to like drop another tease. So when she met online dating, which is magnificent. I know a lot of people have been really successful with that. My brother and sister-in-law. So anyways, I
talk all about it in my book. Yeah.
When she saw Dan for the first time, when he got out of his car, she knew he was the right one because ... And I'm not going to tell you. And it's hilarious. Right. I love it. So good.
Yeah. I still have to deal with that, but I can.
Yeah. So, So, okay. So if I'm doing the math, 17 years.
Tomorrow is our 15th wedding anniversary, but we've been together for 16 years. I so married the right person for me. And so you asked me about like the connection from the talk to the book, and I have to.
Yeah. So I'm always interested in timelines. So what I'm thinking too is, I want to mention this because this was really, to me, like jolting, is the town you picked to go move to.
Yeah, New Hope.
New Hope. Did you look something up in the like yellow pages? Like what's a good name?
No, it was
what do I need in my life?
Near where I grew up when I was young, and it's a little funky little artist's town, and it suited me, and I loved it, and I was just like,
and you were in Chicago, right?
I'm in Chicago.
So huge. It wasn't a different state even. You really blew it up.
I blew it up.
Yeah.
I so blew it up.
And so Dan, because a lot of online dating, sometimes people are not real close to each other. Did you guys?
If I didn't meet Dan online, I probably would not have met him. Like there was really no threads that were overlapping for us anywhere in our life. But I mean, I'm so glad for how it all turned out. I'm so grateful all the time. My husband he's wonderful. He's right for me. We've had a very happy life together so far. I don't see that changing anytime soon. I mean, there have been challenges of other people along the way as when you marry and get involved later in life, there's a lot of things to consider, but
so when you started dating, did he live in the same town?
No.
Okay. So you had long distance. So where do you live now?
Well, I'm still in Bucks County, PA, which is
okay. You're close to me. We could like meet up sometime.
I know. Where are you?
I'm in Virginia.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So not that far. Everything's close on the East Coast.
Yes. Yeah. Pennsylvania is beautiful too. It's a beautiful area.
Yeah. It's so I say to people, I live in the country with New Yorkers.
Oh yeah.
People
don't realize how close it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really close. It's perfect. It's really nice. It's really, really nice.
So you made this big move to New Hope. You started online dating. And then, so I was trying to figure out the timeline. So that was like probably 2004. And then you didn't do the TED Talk to 2014. So was this all kind of like this intense learning about yourself and,
Yeah. So, what happened was, I love TED Talks. I love them. I can file the days away. I think we live in such an amazing time where we can watch so many brilliant people from all over the world, share with us so much of their talents and knowledge. And I always wanted to, I'm a communications consultant, 30 years. I've been a writer my whole life, speaker, facilitator, all those things. And I always wanted to write a book. I have a few books in the drawer. I'm working on a second book now. Like, that's just who I am. And so, but I had someone very close to me die, and I was very jarred by that. And I started to look around and think to myself, we better get on with it. And I noticed that myself and other people were holding on to these things that just didn't matter. They just didn't matter, that they were wasting time. And I felt so compelled, with no agenda, Lori, to get up on that stage and share my biggest dating failure ever to the world. And I have to say, I don't know why I was surprised, but I thought, here I am, I'm on the stage with 25 amazing women talking about, like, they'd survived cancer, they'd won Emmy Awards, they'd traveled to third world countries and built bridges and brought underwear and done all these they lobbied at they're like doing these amazing things. And I remember saying to my husband when I was rehearsing and preparing, I'm talking about a breakup, even though I knew it was way more than a breakup. And he said to me, people can relate to what you're talking about. Like, we've all been there. So
think how many people who were in long-term relationships that you saved from that talk.
Well, it's shocking because
that changed their lives because of that TED Talk, that 11-minute TED Talk. Yeah.
I thought, like, me, my husband, my parents would watch it, but we're at almost 4 million people.
That's amazing.
And the number 2 TED Talk of all the TED Talks given at that particular TEDx event over like 5 or 6 years. And I really think that it is really literally because no matter where we live, no matter what culture, love is love. We all overstay our welcome. We are all struggling. And so I started to hear from women and men from all over the world, and they would share their stories of holding on, and they would ask me for advice. How do I do this? And the one common thread, Lori, that they all had was that none of them believed they deserved what they wanted and it was possible. And that's why I called my book Big Wild Love, because I truly believe that we'll never let go. I wanted to make the process of letting go tangible. So I created a process, but we have to start from a place of that intentional self-love. Because otherwise we'll walk to the edge of the cliff, but we won't jump, because we're looking for the outside net when we're the net. We're looking for guarantees. We're looking for, if I let go of this relationship, there's another one. If I let go of this job or this friendship or this idea or this issue, there's going to be something better. And if I can't see it, I'm not letting go, because this is something and it's better than nothing. And it's not a judgment. It's not at all a judgment. It's human nature. We're wired for safety. We're wired to be in what feels familiar. And every single person I talked to was the same thing. Even with people who were like, I'm ready to let go, but they didn't know how. They needed the roadmap. So I thought, this is like, I'm telling people in DMs and emails, like the same things over and over and over. And I'm like, I'm a writer. So, I worked with an agent and the whole bit, and I have a book, and I'm really proud of it. It's won a lot of awards, but we're never done letting go. And this is the important thing, because then COVID hit. Now let's talk about what we all need to let go of, because I think so many of us are now dealing with issues of letting go around all the things we lost, all the people we may have lost, and even like our senses of identity. Who are we now? Who are we in the wake of what we've lost? Maybe we lost people. I know for me, my book came out when all the bookstores were closing. The dream of publication, of the book tour and the launch, that was all canceled. People lost weddings, people divorced, people, lost out on jobs. They lost out on life. Like, We've all
Freedom,
lost
freedom.
something.
A lot of people. Yes, like
Freedom,
freedom.
freedom, or just the safety of going to the grocery store without worrying that you're going to take your life into your hands.
Yes, a loss of security.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're letting go all the time, all
Mhm.
the time. And, having it as what I try and do is talk about it and frame it in a way where it's an actual tangible tool that we can use and not just this ethereal sort of, oh, let's meditate on the idea of letting go. There's value in that. There's value in all of it. But as I was moving through my life, letting go of Hector, letting go of the voices in my head that weren't my own, letting go of the limiting beliefs, letting go of the other relationships that were part of that experience, letting go of the city I loved because I moved away and all the job and the friends and the condo and everything. Was that I really reached for it as a tangible tool to keep me on the straight and narrow, knowing that it would be there for me if I needed it as I moved through life and found myself somewhere I no longer belonged. Like I left my full-time big corporate day job in 2019 because I took another big leap because, it
That's when I
wasn't
left mine. That's when I left mine. October.
right. And so, October. And so,
Yeah.
but we don't make those choices easily unless we know that we have the ground under our feet.
Yeah, October 2019 was a big decision for me because I was like clinging on to the security of that
Right.
six-figure job, that
Yep.
identity that
Yeah.
comes with those six-figure jobs.
Correct.
And I was like that. I had this aha moment. I realized, you know what? That is not. I am basically by doing that, not believing that my dream is possible. It's a form of
That's
disbelief.
right.
It's
And
I'm not faith.
it's
I don't
the
have faith. Yeah,
epiphany.
yeah.
It's the epiphany that you had that you couldn't stay anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You just couldn't because you'd be shortchanging yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You'd be shortchanging yourself. But you also knew that you'd be okay because you have yourself.
Yeah.
And you're resourceful and resilient and that you will always be okay because you can care for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because I started this abundance series on my podcast and I do an abundance episode every week. And it's because I just wanted to live from a more abundant state. And
Yes.
I thought I could inspire people that way. And so one of the things in abundance, one of the kind of the principles is, one of the principles is simplicity. Well, I get this from this book I'm reading, and it's a really great book and has an excerpt a day, and it's taught me so much. So it's like I have this abundance practice now every day, every morning. And so I promised my students I would create a course for them. So I'm working on that. But it's so funny because I think your Big Wild Love is so aligned with abundance because in the simplicity principle, one of the things she talks about is self-acceptance and how to love yourself into wholeness, which is all about, stepping into who you really are, not like thinking about the person who you want to be. Everybody wants to lose 10 pounds. And so, okay, I'll do that when I lose 10 pounds, or, I'll make that decision when I'll take those pictures when I lose 10 pounds. And it's like we put everything on hold because we're not accepting who we are.
Right.
And you can only be, and so it's always like what we're looking for that we don't have instead of what we have right in front of us. And that to me is like a lot of probably what your book's about.
Yes, I love all of that. And here's the other thing about it. It's also being fair to ourselves. So, for example, I believe, Lori, that there are limiting beliefs that we can let go of that stand between us and acceptance.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But I also believe that maybe there are some limiting beliefs we're just going to have forever because they're so deeply ingrained in us. And so the acceptance comes from saying, okay, I have this. I don't know if I could let it go. So, but I know that I can let it not stop me from having the life that I want. So, for example, a friend of mine told me about a family member who would come to the lake every year and was very body conscious. And so she wouldn't get in the lake, but she would sit on the side in a bathing suit and like a cover up, and she would put her feet in the pool, and she was there. And I remember saying, maybe that's as far as she can go, and that's a win for her. And that's okay. She doesn't have to get in the pool. She's there. We all get to decide. Like, I don't think there's ever going to be a time in my life where I'm just going to not think about my body. I just don't. I'm 58 years old, and I think about it not in the same way, never in the same way. Like, it does not stop me from living my life. But at the same time, I don't, and I can't beat myself up or put pressure on myself to be like, I've got to get beyond this. I've got to change this belief. No, some beliefs we just are so deep, we just can't. But what we can do is love ourselves through them and make a commitment to ourselves that we're not going to let them stop us from doing the things we want to do in life. And I think they're two very different things. I think,
and I would say also focus on the things that you do like versus the things you don't like. Because
right. I mean,
you should really try to find those.
Well, yes, of course. And I think, but I think this is a realistic part of acceptance, because I know there are people who have things about themselves that they want to change, or limiting beliefs in the context of so many empowering beliefs, but it's that limiting belief that will pull them back. It's like when you do a performance review for someone and you give them a glowing review, but maybe you've said one thing in that review that's like, here's where I think you could do better. That's where they're focusing their lives. And it's like, they're missing the bigger picture. And so I think it's okay. It's giving ourselves permission to be imperfect, giving ourselves permission to say, maybe I'm not ever going to be here, but I'm never going to let this thing be in my way. I'm just not. I can have it, and I can deal with it, and I can talk to myself about it. When I think it's in my way, then I need to work on, how do I get it out of my way? But maybe I'm never going to fully be done with it, and that's okay. That's okay. There's a really deep acceptance there that I think, to me, just feels very realistic, because, and as we get older, as life changes, we either get new limiting beliefs, or we find the old ones like creeping back up. And so we're constantly having to process and have an awareness and bring the big wild love out at the, like a big ball, like, here's the big wild love. Okay, let's pull that into this story. Where does it fit so that I can keep moving? Because
I like that you have, there's actually a physical, like, was that a crystal? Like, where you have a,
yes, we got this in Italy, and I keep it close.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm like,
where you have like a visual,
right,
like some kind of an attachment, where like
right,
in the Simple Abundance book, she talks about this mirror, and it's like it's kind of a visualization of looking at yourself in the mirror, and who is that person? You're looking at your authentic self, and there's
right,
light, and you have this thing where light, and it envelopes you. And
yes.
so, it's kind of like where you have that, something that, and like the idea of a crystal, where even you could have a small crystal and you could carry it around your pocket, and this is
Whatever
always reminds me of that I'm strong enough, I'm good enough.
Maybe it's a picture, maybe it's a hairband, like whatever, whatever it is for you.
Scrunchie. Oh my God, they're back.
That tells you, wait a minute, but the thing is the more you do it, the easier it is. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it does kind of quietly slip away. The charge comes out of it. That's what happens, is the charge comes out of it.
Yeah.
And we begin to, like, I'll tell people who are younger than me, like, when I'm having my 800th hot flash of the day, I'm like, if you're lucky, you too will get to experience hot flashes as you get older. Like, if you're lucky, you too will have an opportunity to look at those wrinkles and be like, right? I mean, these are all gifts that we get. And so, but I do, and this is all part of my letting go work, is when I am in those triggered moments, around how I feel like I look, or, maybe I notice something new about me as part of the aging process, or anything else that I may not love, I come back to, and I don't say this in a Pollyanna way, I come back to, it's okay. It's a gift. It's okay. It's okay. And it's okay for you to feel bad about it. But, move on when you're done, and let's keep going, and let's not let it. And sometimes I say it out loud in the spirit of letting go. It's all part of the process. Having the epiphany, oh my God, I'm aging. Here's how I feel about that. That's the second step in my process, is how do I feel about that epiphany and what I've done? I got to deal with those feelings. I can't push them away because they're like a beach ball. They're just going to keep coming up. And the third thing is asking the question, okay, what do I want? Well, if I don't like that my eyebrows are going gray, which is the epiphany that I'm getting older, yes, it's going to happen to me too.
Or that they're disappearing.
Right. And I feel like, oh my God, yeah, I'm human. And this is really like, I can't change it. And I feel sad, and it's okay. And then it's the gift. What do I want? I want a happy, full life in this phase. I want to feel healthy, and I want to feel good, and I want to be my best for where I am now, not for that 20-year-old. I'm never going back there. Right. And then how do I get it? Well, I don't get it by crying in the mirror. I get it by being vibrant and making vibrant, bold choices that are stemmed from my big, wild love. And then what else do I need to let go of? That's the fifth step. What else do I need to let go of so that I can move forward? What other limiting beliefs or obstacles are in my way that I need to remove so that I can get to that end goal? So there is a tangible way to let go. It's just knowing the steps, and they're very organic and very intuitive, but reminding yourself that every feeling of discomfort is an opportunity to step into that process.
Yeah.
And,
To me, it's almost like a coaching procedure, and like coach yourself through it.
but you're like a
It's like
self-cleaning oven.
Yeah. So I like that. I
What did
like that
anybody
concept
else
because it's
do it?
doable. Anybody can do it. You just have
You're
to.
all people are already doing it.
Mhm,
They're already doing it. It's just they're not doing it mindfully.
mhm.
And maybe they're not doing it at the right time. And maybe they're doing it around the wrong questions.
Yeah. 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 I think a big problem is just a lack of awareness. And then once people
Mhm.
get, everybody once they are aware and it's
Right.
recognizable, then that this is really helpful. So
Right.
helpful. So yeah, you're clearly like, I'm really into sparketypes, and you're clearly a maker because you like to make things, like writing is making, and yeah,
Yes.
creating. In your speaker, you like to create speeches. And so, yeah, clearly you have not been able to do much of that with the pandemic. So
No.
what's next? You said you're working on another book. So what's next?
I'm working on another
stirring your,
book.
yeah.
I'm very excited about it. It's actually a novel, but it's still going to be, I love fiction because it tells a lie that tells the truth. So I'm very excited about that. And I'm hoping that we can leave the house safely. I have a few events coming up. They're in person.
Oh, where are they? What are they?
Yeah. So one is in Chicago for it's a charity event, and another one is in Santa Fe. And I'm going to put myself in a hazmat suit. I'm vaccinated. I'm vaxxed and waxed, I'm ready to go. And then I have another one that I'm doing here for a business group.
That's exciting.
I have a lot of communications clients that I do work for. I do a lot of blogging and social mediaing and speaking to people there. And I hear from people all the time. It's really fulfilling and wonderful. I'm so grateful to be able to do for other people what I wish I had someone could do for me.
Well, I think that's your path, right? That's a lesson you needed. And now it's like, okay, now you have this, you have your master's in letting go. And so, yeah, that's what I finally figured out. And that's what I was so passionate about. One of the things that really made me realize what I wanted is, like, pretend you were standing on a stage and, well, pretend you go to a conference and one of the speakers doesn't show up and you know the person holding the event and they say, hey, can you fill in just like 20 minutes, get up there and
Right.
get up there and like just off the cuff.
Right.
What are you so passionate about that you don't want anybody in that room to leave until
Yes.
they hear what you have to say. You don't want,
Right.
you want everybody to leave that room inspired by this one thing. What is it that you don't want anybody to not know? And in
Right.
that moment, I knew what it was. And what that
Great
moment
question.
was I didn't want anybody to get to the end of their life with any regret. And so, cause
Yes.
I just realized I was living, settling. I was living a
Yes.
life that I was settling for. And
Yep.
so, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I had this vision of getting to the end of my life and
Right.
saying, what if? And so, yeah, I
Right.
think if you ask yourself that question, even if you don't ever like, you don't like speaking or anything, but like maybe you just ask yourself, if you had this, you met a stranger and you had just one thing you could tell them, this one interaction of your
Right.
life with a stranger, what
Right.
would you want them to know? And that I think can really lead you to what you're
Yeah.
meant to do and how you can help the
Totally.
world be a better place. So yes, it's been
Absolutely.
delightful. I do have a last question. I want to know, since you're such a TED talky person, what are some of your favorites? I think it would be great to share with the audience. I have like my two top ones, I think, but you might make me think of some more, but the Mel Robbins one.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love her.
Yeah. The F word,
Oh
the F
my
word.
God, I
Yeah.
love her. I
Yeah.
love her, and I love her talk. She's so her.
Yes, I love her emails. I'm on her email list and she
Yeah,
is so real and
she's
raw
so
and oh my
great.
gosh. I loved her when she wrote an email and said that her daughter's gotten her hooked to Love Island. I was like, oh my God, who would ever say that out loud? Yeah.
I
And then
know.
I love Brene Brown, her
Yeah,
talk on vulnerability, I
yeah,
think the power of vulnerability is so, so good. So like,
yeah.
what are your like top hits that you can think of?
Well, okay, I can't think of her name. She's I think she might be Afghan Palestinian, and she has cerebral palsy. I can't think of her name, but I'll tell you some other ones. She's amazing. She gets up there and she talks about how she works her way through her disability, and she's funny, and I have to figure out her name, but
You can send it to me later and I'll put it in the show
I will.
notes.
I think her name is
Okay.
Maison something. And
Is
then
she a comedian?
yes,
She came when I was a Beachbody coach. She spoke at one of our events.
yes, you know who I'm
Yes,
talking
so
about.
good.
She's
So good.
amazing.
Yeah.
She drew me into TED. I love Mel.
Okay.
I love everything Mel does. I love this talk by Courtney Farrell called Girl Up.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Girl Up.
Okay.
It's fabulous. And I love all my writing gurus like Annie Lamott and Liz Gilbert
Yeah.
and you know who else's talk I really thought was so well done and super powerful was Monica Lewinsky's.
Ooh.
I
Yeah.
really thought her talk was just really good.
I'll have to look that one up. I
Really
think
well done.
I've seen her do a speech, so it might have been something else, but I'll have to look that up. Definitely. I saw the guy, Nick, what's his name? Nick. He has no arms or leg. He was born with no arms or legs.
Oh,
What's his name?
I
Nick.
don't know.
He's
Yeah,
a
I don't
he's
know.
a motivational speaker. So I'll have to look up these and put
Yeah.
some of them in the.
There's so many. I can't think of their names offhand. Like there was one talk that I loved where it was a guy who had filmed his life for 1 second every day.
Wow.
And he showed the film and he talked about the experience of how you may not think 1 second would give you enough to get a picture, but it was so rich. It was beautiful. It really it made me laugh and cry, and it was just beautiful. It was just
Wow. And how old was he? I guess he was an older
no, he was
gentleman.
young. He was young. He was probably,
Okay.
I think he was in his early 30s, maybe.
Okay.
He wasn't that old, but
Interesting. Okay.
it was just really so interesting and so fascinating that he would even think about doing something like that.
Yeah.
There's so many. I literally could like just watch them all day long.
Yeah.
All day
I
long.
usually Google top TED talks if I'm, looking for something. The TEDx talks are really good because those are little, and is
Yeah,
yours Wilmington, Delaware? Is that where
yeah,
you, okay.
yeah.
Yeah. I recently, in fact, it's so funny. I recently Googled, our town has done TED talks,
Yes.
had those events. And so I Googled and messaged them, and they said they're on hold right now. But yeah, so I took that one step.
Yes, because if
One
you
a
wanna
baby
do
step.
if you want to do a TEDx talk, don't do it virtually. You've got to have the whole experience. You really do. You
Yeah.
really, really do.
So cool.
And
So cool.
do it. And do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amazing.
One day it'll be on
Amazing.
my eulogy. So anyways, thanks
Yeah.
so much for coming. You're a
Oh,
delight.
thank you
I am
for
so
the
excited to have
invite.
met you and to have had this conversation.
Back to you.
Like I say, I think we think a lot alike, and we took action when we needed to, and it taught us a lot, and I think
Yeah.
will inspire a lot of people. So
Great.
and we made the internet work. No
Yes.
glitches. No glitches.
Always a win.
We both made changes on each end, and it was like
Always a win.
guys, always
That's
a
how
win.
I feel. Yeah.
All right, Jill, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Lori. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraverage.grandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own, not your average life.